Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'll be showing you how to make this fun design. We'll be using the adjustable punch needle for this. And if you want to know more about the needle, then I suggest you watch this video first, because there I go in more detail into how to thread the needle, how to punch, and how the loops actually stay in. So if you're interested to know more, then you can simply go to this video. So I made this design already months ago, but it got a lot of attention on Instagram, and I finally decided to make a kit out of it. So you can find the kit in my Etsy shop, and in the kit you will find everything you need to make this. So if you want one, then you can go to my shop. I'll leave a link in the description. And this video goes really well together with the kit. So if you like this kind of content, then don't forget to subscribe to my channel and put on the notification bell to get notifications when I post a new video.
Let's start with the supplies. You need a punch needle, of course. In this case, an adjustable punch needle. And this needle can adjust the length of the loops, which is important for this design. You can make longer and smaller loops. And you need a threader. In this case, I'm using a weaving needle. You need a hoop of some kind. I like the wooden hoops with the beautiful brass closure. And monk's cloth. This is the best cloth to start punching in, and this is taped around the edges to prevent it from unraveling. Of course, you need yarn. You need different colors, and especially this multicolored yarn is important to create the nice effect of the flowers. Then you need some kind of pliers or screwdriver and the pattern. And of course, scissors. Sharp scissors are important to cut the flowers. You need a pen to draw on the monk's cloth with, make sure it doesn't smudge, and you need something to finish the back, like a piece of linen or cotton or something you have lying around. And I also use glue. This is a special textile glue, but you could also use a glue gun. We start our project by drawing the pattern onto the monk's cloth. First, we have to put the monk's cloth in the hoop. We have to make sure that the monk's cloth is placed in the middle of the hoop, and we have to stretch it out a little bit. But it's just for drawing the pattern, so we don't have to worry about it being super tight. First, we place our pattern on a window. This monk's cloth is quite thick, so we can only draw or see the pattern when it's touching the window. So we're going to draw on the back. Make sure that the hoop aligns with the circle on the pattern and that the closure is in the middle at the top. Now simply copy the lines of the pattern. And there you go, the pattern is copied. So now we've got the pattern on the back and we want it to be in the front. So we're taking out our monk's cloth and turning it around. We put on the top and we make sure that the design is placed nicely in the middle, and we're happy with it. This is looking good, so we now screwing the closure as tight as we can with our hands and stretching out the monk's cloth a little bit. We keep looking at our design. So now we take our pliers or screwdriver and we're going to close the closure a little bit. And now we're going to go all the way around and pull on it to make sure that the cloth is in very tightly. We want it to sound like a drum in the end. So we're going to repeat this a few times. Screw a little bit and pull on the edges, and then finally we're going to screw it as tight as we can. On to the first stitches. We're going to start with the stems of the flower. For that we need the darker green, and we're going to thread the punch needle with it. We do this with the help of the weaving needle. So we thread the weaving needle at the top, push it through the back and through the hole at the top. If you wish to see this in more detail, I've made a different video only about the adjustable punch needle. You can find it there. We don't want the loops to be too long on the back, so we're going to use this setting. So we've got 4 slots left on the right, and so it's set to the second setting, not the first, because I think the loops are going to be too short if we do it like that. Let's first watch me punch a little bit, and then we'll go in more detail to show you what I'm doing. As you can see, I go up once and I go down once, so we're making 2 rows. One of the most important things when punching is to have slack with your yarn, otherwise the loops will keep pulling out. So let me show you in more detail. I punch in, and on the other side I pull out the tail. This is going to be the back side, so that's where we want the tails to be. I hold on to my punch needle and I pull on it a little bit to make the tail shorter, because we don't want to waste yarn. And now I punch. I always punch all the way down till the handle touches the cloth. Sometimes you have to push a little bit harder. And when I'm done, I cut off the yarn next to my needle, like this. Make sure it's completely loose, and then I can pull out the needle and my row is done. Pull out a little bit of tail again and start the next row. So now we're going to take our next color. This can be green or beige, depending on which kit you bought. We're going to fill up the area where the flowers are situated, the grass or the meadow, so to speak. And I want to make a special movement in this area, so I'm going to punch straight and round in the sky. So by doing this, I create a special texture. So we're not just going to punch without thinking, we want to make a statement in the movement of the punches. So in this case we're going up and down, making row after row and just filling in the area. We still use the second setting on the needle because we don't want the loops to be too long. And we're going to be careful not to fill in the area of the flowers while maintaining this up and down movement. And remember, always keep slack in the yarn. If If you don't do this and you keep on punching, you will just be pulling out the stitches. This is very important. So let's speed it up a little bit. And the first area is done. We're going to cut off the tail here and start our next area. As you can see here, I've made a mistake. So we're going to correct that by pulling out the previous stitches until we reach the area. Then slide the punch needle back until it touches the monk's cloth, and we'll do the area again. This is called frogging. And this is a real plus for punch needle, because you're allowed to make mistakes. So we want to fill up the entire area, because this is the front of your project and we want it to look good. So we're going to be very careful to make sure it looks nice all the way. Now let's speed up this last part and then on to the sky. So cut the tail on the back, and the first part is done. So for the sky, we're going to use this gorgeous yarn. It's a slub yarn, which means it has thicker and thinner parts, and this makes it a little bit trickier to punch with. Especially the thinner parts will go out easier, but I'll give you some tips and tricks to handle this. We're going to put the needle to the third setting, so we have 3 slots left on the right. We do this because we have the thinner yarn, and if we have longer loops, we have more certainty that the yarn will stay in. So for the sky, we're going to do this round movement, and also other ways, like here. And I do this to get this really gorgeous and interesting texture to the piece. So simply punch all the way around. And don't worry about the thinner parts, they will just stay in. Sometimes it can be a little bit tricky to punch, and then you have to push harder or maybe move your needle a little bit. Now I go back and lay bricks, as I've explained to you in my other video. So now I'm going to outline an area which I'm going to fill up entirely by circling around it. So we'll also go alongside the edge of the hoop, and as you can see, you will always keep an area that you can punch. And it can also be a little bit tricky because you want to punch as close to the edge as you can, and be careful not to stab your finger. So now I'm going towards the flower again because I want to make the areas that I punch small. And I'm just going to fill in this entire area. So here I decide to go back the other way, and I'll explain later in detail why I'm doing this. It has to do with the thicker and thinner parts of the yarn. So here you can see what the back looks like. We've got all these loops, and yeah, you can see these loops are a little bit longer. So I've now finished this area and I've started a new one, and I'm going to divide the piece with some more areas over here and over here and over here. And this is how I create the movement in the sky, which I really love. So let's go on with this area. So let me now explain what I referred to earlier. In this part, I have 2 rows of the thinner yarn next to each other. This happens because there is a rhythm in the thick and thin parts of the yarn. So now I just punched the thinner part, so there's a thicker part in my needle, and I'm going back to punch the thick part next to the thin parts. In this way I kind of secure the area and make sure that the thinner parts stay in. So I continue, and now I've got the thinner parts, which I now punch in next to the thicker areas. So these thinner parts now are also secured. So this is the way that you can punch with thick, thin yarn. You simply have to really look at what you're doing and go back if needed. Now let's speed it up and then onto the flower parts. So once again, you want to fill up the entire area and pay attention to the details, because this is the side that you're going to see. Just look at those stitches going in all directions. I really love the way it looks, especially also in contrast with this area. Now let's cut off the tail. And clean up the back a little bit. So I cut off tails and some loops that are a bit longer than they are supposed to. Don't worry, everything will stay in. This side looks beautiful also, but we're going for this side and we've got 2 more areas to go. And then finally the flowers. So we're going to fill these areas and we're going to do it from the back side because we want the loops to be on the front. We're going to use this beautiful multicolored and thick and thin slub yarn. The multicolored yarn is essential for this design because this way you get this beautiful multicolored flowers. So we're going to put the needle on the last setting, and this way we create a long needle which creates long loops. So we're going to punch from the back. Make sure your yarn has slack. Never forget it. So we want to fill up the circles and we're going from the outside, punching our way to the middle. So push the loops aside and then push as close to the edge of the area as you can. Don't punch your fingers. We're going to keep the tail on the back and just work our way around it, pulling the loops aside and just going round and round. This is going to feel a little bit weird in the beginning because your needle is very long, so it takes longer to pull it up. And don't forget to go all the way down until the handle touches the cloth. As you can see on the front, you get these gorgeous loops. And just continue round and round. It can be a little bit tricky. You have to find a way to hold the embroidery hoop and also push the loops aside. And the first flower is almost done. We can now cut the tail just above the loops and we'll sort that out later. Isn't it gorgeous? I really love doing this part. Now on to the next flowers. It's all the same principle. Just go round and round as close to the edge as you can. So since I filmed this video, I adjusted the pattern a little bit. So I've made some flowers bigger and moved the large flower to the right side. I did this after finishing this hoop and deciding that I thought the flowers were a little bit too small. So if you ordered the kit, it looks a little bit different from this. So cutting the flowers is super easy. Simply cut the loops in half at the top. And then you get this lovely, lovely texture. It takes a little time and you have to pay attention that you've got every loop there is. And as might be clear, you really need sharp scissors and small scissors for this. So here you have another colorway of mine. This is actually the original colorway, and that's why it's also called the original when you buy my kit. So here you can also see the pattern changes that I made. Some flowers are a little bit bigger. For finishing the back right now. So first I cut off all the tails and make sure that everything is neat and nothing is sticking out. So first we're going to take the cloth out of the hoop. Of course, we're going to use our pliers to unscrew the closure. And there you go. Don't worry, the loops won't fall out. And this is where the piece of linen comes in, or cotton, whatever you like. We're going to put this piece over the inner ring and make sure it's in the middle, and then we're going to put our art piece over it. So also make sure that it's in the middle of the hoop, and be aware that there are longer loops on the back. And you want all of those loops to be inside the inner hoop, so not sticking out on the edges. Just go around and make sure that they are tucked in. This can be a little bit tricky because they tend to pop out easily. So when you're satisfied with it, you can put the outer ring over it. Make sure to unscrew the closure a little bit more to make the ring bigger. Be careful to put the closure at the top in the middle so that the design is in straight. And then push it down, catching both fabrics. So this part is going to be difficult. You have to screw it a little bit tighter by hand. And then we're going to start pulling on the edges. Make sure the back is neatly inside, no folds or anything. And then start pulling on the sides. So as you can see, the edge area is much bigger now because the loops push up your design. So we start by pulling all the way around, and we only pull on the monk's cloth, not on the linen. We don't touch it anymore. And as you can see, there's still quite a bit of movement possible, and we're going to stretch out the area while holding also the ring with your left hand, or right hand if you're a lefty, of course. So pull, 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 and be very gentle because you easily pull out the entire thing. And now when you've done this, you can screw it a little bit tighter, and you can do it all over again. So this is a long process, but you want to have everything in nicely and stretch out properly. So when you're satisfied, you can take your pliers and then pull on it a little bit more. Keep looking at your design and see if it's in straight, if maybe some edges are a little bit wider than others, and then repeat the process. And when you're completely satisfied, you can screw it as tight as you can. Now on to the next part. So we're going to cut the linen with a sharp scissors all the way around. So move your way to the hoop and then cut alongside the hoop. As close to the edge as you can, but be careful, you do not want to cut the monk's cloth. So this is what it will look like on the back. Now we'll have to cut the monk's cloth. We want to be able to fold it over the edge, so we've got to leave a little bit of room. So measure it somewhat like this, and this way you know how far to cut it. So cut it all the way around. I actually think I've made it a little bit too big, so I'm going to cut all around again to make it a little bit smaller. And now for the last part, we're going to glue all the way around the hoop, so on the wood and on the fabric. Make sure you use enough glue, but not too much, of course. And when you're done, let it dry for just a few minutes and then start pushing it over the edge. Make sure you do it neatly and push it all the way in, like this. And this is it, guys. This is the result, and I really hope you enjoyed it.
So that was it for this video, guys. I really hope you enjoyed it and that you feel confident that you can make this one on your own. So if you have any questions, don't hesitate at all. Just put them down in the comments and I'll answer them as best as I can. So don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you like this kind of content and hit the bell for notifications. And if you really like the video, then just simply leave a thumbs up. And I hope to see you next time. Bye bye!